For the first 30 seconds, imagine discovering that Michael Myers does not keep coming back because he is strong, or angry, or driven by revenge, but because stopping was never part of his nature. And this video will reveal the unsettling truth behind his endless pursuit. Explore the psychological and supernatural layers that explain his unstoppable presence. Uncover why time, pain, and defeat have no meaning to him, and show how one terrifying interpretation transforms Michael Myers from a slasher villain into something far more disturbing, far more inevitable, and far more frightening than most fans have ever realized. Michael Myers has always been known as the Shape, a figure that walks slowly yet always arrives, a presence that never rushes and never hesitates, creating a fear that does not come from surprise but from certainty. Because the terror lies in knowing that no matter where you run, no matter how long you hide, he will still be there, waiting with the same patience he has always had. The reason Michael never stops cannot be found in a single night, a single act of violence, or a single psychological explanation, because those ideas assume that something broke inside him when the truth suggested by this story is far more unsettling. That nothing ever broke at all because there was never anything human enough inside him to break in the first place. From the earliest moments of his life, Michael displayed an absence rather than a presence, a hollow stillness that felt less like innocence and more like silence, the kind of silence that exists before something awakens. And this is where the idea begins that Michael Myers does not evolve into evil, but simply reveals it. When people attempt to explain Michael through trauma or mental illness, they search for a cause that makes his actions understandable. Yet every attempt fails because Michael does not respond like a damaged person seeking release, but like a force continuing a function, repeating a pattern that does not require motivation or emotion. The mask becomes central to this understanding, not as a tool of disguise, but as a symbol of completion, because when Michael puts it on, nothing changes. No personality shifts, no transformation occurs, since the mask does not hide a man, but confirms that there was never one to begin with. This story suggests that Michael Myers never stops because stopping would imply a goal, an endpoint, or a desire for resolution. And Michael shows no evidence of any of these, as his actions do not build towards satisfaction or closure, but continue in a loop that feels mechanical, ritualistic, and frighteningly consistent. Unlike other killers who escalate, adapt, or grow more elaborate, Michael remains the same not because he is limited but because he is complete, already operating at his intended state, which is perhaps the most terrifying realization of all, that he is not trying to become something because he already is. Pain does not slow him because pain requires interpretation, and Michael does not interpret. He absorbs, he endures, and he continues, suggesting that physical damage is irrelevant to something that does not define itself by the body it inhabits. Time also fails to affect him in any meaningful way, as years pass without eroding his purpose or weakening his presence, reinforcing the idea that Michael Myers exists outside the normal rules of consequence, aging, and psychological change, as if he is anchored to something deeper than biology. The environments he moves through seem to change in response to him, with familiar places becoming hostile, safe spaces turning into traps, and normal routines dissolving into paranoia because Michael does not invade chaos, he creates it, bending reality simply by being present. Those who survive encounters with him often describe the same overwhelming sensation, not just fear but inevitability, the crushing awareness that their survival was accidental, not earned, and that the encounter was never truly finished, only paused. This interpretation reframes Michael Myers not as a hunter chasing prey, but as a constant pressure applied to the world, a force that resurfaces whenever conditions allow, which explains why no victory over him ever feels permanent or meaningful. The story goes darker when considering that Michael does not react emotionally to success or failure, as there is no frustration when he is stopped, and no triumph when he kills, only continuation, which makes his violence feel less like choice and more like gravity. In this way, Michael Myers becomes a reflection of something deeply unsettling about fear itself. The idea that fear does not need intelligence or intention to persist, because it exists as long as there is something to be afraid of, and sometimes even when there is not. Attempts to destroy Michael always fail because they are based on the assumption that removing the body removes the threat. Yet this story implies that the body is merely a point of contact, a shape fear takes so it can move through the world, meaning that destroying it only delays the inevitable return. This is why he walks instead of runs, because speed implies urgency, and urgency implies possibility of failure, while Michael moves with absolute certainty, knowing that time is on his side, and that panic belongs to everyone else. The streets, the houses, and the shadows he inhabits become part of his legend because they are not just settings but witnesses, absorbing the memory of his presence and carrying it forward, ensuring that even when he is gone, the fear remains. Michael Myers never stops because stopping would require reflection, and reflection requires a self. Yet everything about him suggests an absence of self, a hollow center where nothing exists except the need to continue, making him less a villain and more a manifestation. This is what separates him from every other horror icon, because he does not speak, does not explain, and does not justify, leaving audiences with a fear that cannot be resolved through understanding, only endured through survival. The most terrifying implication of this story is that Michael Myers does not pursue individuals, but moments, appearing when fear must be reminded of itself, when safety becomes too comfortable, and when the illusion of control needs to be shattered. That is why he never stops, because fear never stops. It waits, it lingers, and it returns wearing the same mask, walking at the same pace, and carrying the same promise that no matter how much time passes, some things do not end. If this story made you see Michael Myers in a completely different and far more disturbing way, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your thoughts on why you believe he never stops, and share this video with other horror fans who are brave enough to confront the idea that some evils are not meant to be defeated, only survived.